And coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City. Welcome to the Sports Wagering Zone. No matter what time zone you happen to be in, welcome to the show. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're also here on Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time to give you some information on those early games that start at 1 o'clock. So try to do everything we can to bring as much information to you as possible. So welcome to the show. I'm Chris Pardo. And of course, we're here on the I 95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Also, podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify, Google, you name it, you can find us without any problem whatsoever. Well, it's Friday, and we usually refer to this as Fade the Public Friday. Again, that saying goes back a long ways because on the old days, people used to get paid on Friday, and that's when they made a lot of bets on those days. So we are contrarians here on the show. We bet against the public. So on a day like today, where normally they'd be betting a lot of favorites, we're going to be going the other way as well. So anyway, here we go. We got a lot to talk about today. Things are going on primarily in college football. That's going to be the main topic of discussion. Going to touch a little bit on the NFL as well. Kind of give you some thoughts and ideas on a couple of games that we've been taking a closer look at. But as always, as we always do, let's get a look at what happened yesterday as far as football was concerned. In the college football, Virginia held off Miami 30-28 as the Hurricanes missed their 33-yard field goal as time was running out. The Cavaliers pulled off the ACC upset as 3.5-point road underdogs, and they were a plus 141 on the money line as well. And of course, the game did stay under the betting total of 63.5. And of course, yesterday, if you listen to the show, we gave you the thought that the pros were on the Miami Hurricanes. So if you happen to go that way, they were wrong yesterday. Although they're not wrong all the time, they do make mistakes. Not mistakes, but hey, things happen. There's a fumble, there's an interception, something happens. As we all know, they maintained pretty close to a 60% average. But as far as the games were concerned yesterday, now as far as the NFL season, right from the beginning, we've had 17 plays that we talked about where the pros were laying their money. Out of those 17 plays, we had 9 winners, which puts us at 53% right now because we had the Jaguars and Bengals as well yesterday, and we had the Bengals in that game, but of course they didn't cover either. So the pros are at 53%. Meanwhile, as far as the college game is concerned, let's see, we're down to 52% on that one. There were 19 plays, 10 winners so far in college football. So try to keep you up to date, give you the numbers on them. And again, as always, we want you to make that final decision. We can tell you which direction the pros are going. It's up to you to decide whether you want to bet with them, against them, or if you don't want to bet the game at all. Like we said, the NFL, the Bengals, they rallied to beat the Jaguars 24-21. And then once again, another field goal as time expired last night. Kind of kicks off NFL week 4. But the Bengals, they didn't cover, even though they did win, closing as 7.5-point home favorites. And of course, the game stayed just under the betting total of 46 points as primetime overs dipped to 8-2 so far, with the last 2 Thursday games being only under so far. The favorites improved to 27-21 straight up, and with one pick'em in there as well. And the Buccaneers and the Rams in week 3 were that pick'em. And again, the pick'em is from Vegas. Whenever we talk about numbers, lines, as far as pick'ems are concerned, or as far as numbers are concerned, we're talking about Vegas numbers. They may be different where you are, where you're living, where you do your business. The underdogs did improve to 30-18. They're at almost 62% right now for the season. Keep in mind, 52.3 is your break-even point. Now, home and road teams are now tied 24 and 24 straight up. And again, with one neutral site game. Remember that game between the Packers and the Saints was held in Jacksonville in week one because of the flooding situation that was happening in New Orleans. But road teams, they lead against the spread 27-21, which is 56% as well. The unders improved to 29-20, puts them at 59% overall. But if you take out the prime time games, the unders are 27-12, and they're almost 70% in Sunday day games. So it kind of give you an idea as to how those numbers are running. Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, the Orioles are plus 195, upset the Red Sox 6-2 Thursday night to further tighten up that American League wild card race. The Red Sox fell into a tie with the Mariners, who didn't play for that second wild card spot, with the Blue Jays one game back after losing 6-2 to the Yankees, who were a plus 150. Plus 132 on the money line. Not often you see the Yankees, especially that high, on the plus side of the money line. The Braves are a minus 150. Astros minus 150. They clinched their division titles with wins last night. The Giants are minus 220, and the Dodgers are minus 225. Also won in their National League West races, but San Francisco still has that 2-game lead with only 3 games left to play. So we'll see what happens. Favorites went 8-4 overall yesterday, and they now lead at 59.6% on the season, with 55 pick'ems included. The over-under split yesterday, 6-6. The unders still lead, and they're at a little over 50%, 50.5 to be exact. So those are the totals. Those are the numbers. So we're going to take a break. When we do come back, we're going to talk about some college football. We got 3 games to take a close look at to see which direction the line movement is going and try to determine which direction the pros are going as well. The games we're going to talk about are Houston against Tulsa, Iowa against Maryland, and BYU up against Utah State. So let's get that first break out of the way. And if you've listened to the show before, you know we do take 3 breaks in the show. Each one is of 1 minute duration. So if that's the case, we will be back in the zone in 1 minute. And welcome back. Here we go again. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from, well, we're live, a little stuffed up, but live, okay, from Denver, Colorado, here in the Mile High City. A lot of smoke out here and kind of causes some problems with allergies and things of that nature. So if I sound a little stuffy, it's because of the weather conditions here in the Colorado area. Anyway, we are live, and of course, we're on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We also podcast. We're podcasting on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, Google. We're on most of the major podcast platforms as well. So, in the meantime, let's talk about where the action is going for a couple of the Friday night college football matchups and games for tonight. Again, this is Fade the Public Friday. That's what we called it. So, the first game we're looking at around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, of course. Houston at Tulsa. Now, this is an AAC showdown game. You got two teams with polar opposite records. Houston is 3-1 straight up, 2-2 against the spread. They've won 3 straight games after they dropped the first game of the season to Texas Tech. On the Cougars, they just took down Navy 28-20 last week, although they failed to cover as 20-point home favorites in that game. Now, on the other hand, looking at Tulsa, they're 1-3 straight up. They're 2-2 against the spread as well. Finally, they secured their first win of the season last week, snapping a 3-game losing streak with that 41-34 win over Arkansas State, although they did fail to cover because they were 14.5-point home favorites in that game. So as we look at this line for today, open with Tulsa, a 3.5-point home favorite. The public is kind of split down the middle. The tickets coming in are like 55-45, almost 50-50 in some instances. They don't know which way to go. The early money looked to have leaned towards Tulsa as the line ticked up from 4 to being a 4.5-point favorite. But since that time, it's really been a steady dose of Houston money coming in, dropping the line back down to 3.5. Now, if you read between the lines, it looks like the late money, okay, is breaking towards Houston. The Cougars have value in this game. They're a short road dog of +4 or less. 54, they're 54% against the spread so far, not only this year, but against in the entire 10 years ago, okay? For the past 10 years, short road dogs of +4 or less are at 54%. Houston also has value. They're a road conference dog. Tulsa has the edge on the offense, 490 yards per game against 363, but Houston has the far better defense, only allowing 246 yards as opposed to 395 yards on Tulsa. The Pros have also hit the under in this game, dropping that total from 57 down to 54. As far as the weather's concerned, temperatures in the low 70s, 5-mile-per-hour winds, and possibly there could be some rain coming into play as well. So in this game between Houston and Tulsa, the Pros are on the underdog, the Houston Cougars. At 8 o'clock, you have Iowa at Maryland. Now, this is a Big Ten grudge match, okay, between two undefeated teams. And it's the most heavily bet game for tonight, without a doubt. Iowa is 4-0 straight up, 3-1 against the spread. They come into this conference showdown ranked 5th in the country, having just beaten Colorado State 24-14, although the Hawkeyes didn't cover because they were 23.5-point home favorites in that game. In the meantime, Maryland, who is 4-0 straight up also, they're 3-1 against the spread, which is pretty good betting situation so far with them. They just beat Kent State 37-16, and they covered. They were 13-point home favorites in that game. So as we look at the line in this game, it opened with Iowa, a 4-point road favorite. The public can't believe that the mighty Hawkeyes are laying such a short number, and they are betting and backing Iowa very heavily. But the Pros think this line, it looks kind of fishy to them. So, because the question is this, why is Iowa only favored by a handful of points if they're ranked fifth overall in the country. So, despite heavily lopsided betting in this game in the favor of Iowa, we've seen the Hawkeyes go down from being a 4 to a 3-point favorite. What this means, the pro money is coming in what we call a reverse line movement on the home dog, which is Maryland in this game, who are also contrarian in a probably very heavily bet game. Iowa does draw a lot of money, so does Maryland. Maryland also has buy low value. They're an unranked conference dog against a ranked opponent in Iowa. So we've also seen some over money show up as well, causing the pros, the odds makers, to adjust that total from 46 to 47 and a half. Iowa is 4-0 to the under, and Maryland is 3-1 to the under. So in this game between Iowa and Maryland, the pros are on the dog, Maryland. We have one more game to talk about, and that's BYU against Utah State. It's a 9 o'clock game, but before we get to there, let's get that next break out of the way. And of course, when we come back, we'll go over that game. We'll recap the first two in case you missed them. And of course, we're going to take a look and see what Chris Andrews has to say about these three games from a perspective from the bookmakers, okay? Kind of give you an idea as to how and why those lines developed the way they are. So let's take that break. And as always, it's only 1 minute, so we will be back in 60 seconds. And here we go again. Welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from the Mile High City, right here in Denver, Colorado, on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms as well, such as, Apple, Spotify, Google, you name it. We're on most of the major podcast platforms as well. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Saturdays and Sundays, like tomorrow, which is Saturday, we'll be here at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Once again, to take into consideration some of the games that start at noon or 1 o'clock Eastern Time, give you as much information as we can so that you can make the right decision. If you tuned in a little late earlier today, we talked about Houston against Tulsa. That game's at 7:30. The pros in that game are on Houston. Iowa and Maryland. Probably going to be one of the biggest bet games of the night. Iowa and Maryland. The pros in this game like the underdog. Maryland. They're up against Iowa, a fifth ranked team in the country. So that's a big game there. Pros on the dog in Maryland. Finally, at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, of course, BYU and Utah State. Now, this is a late night game. It's the most lopsided game of the night. It provides a unique value to us contrarian minded bettors. BYU, they're 4-0 straight up, 2-2 against the spread, undefeated and ranked 13th in the country. The Cougars are coming off a 35-27 win over South Florida. although BYU failed to cover in that game as 23-point home favorites. In the meantime, on the other side, Utah State, 3-1 straight up, 3-1 against the spread, which makes them a good betting team so far. Started the season 3-0, but they did suffer their first loss last week. They lost to Boise State 27-3, and they didn't cover because they were 9.5-point dogs at home. Now, as we look at the line today, it opened with BYU listed as an 8.5-point road favorite. 8.5 points. The public is hammering BYU, expecting an easy double-digit win in this game, and very easily they think they will recover from a ranked team, okay? And so this lopsided betting has pushed BYU up from being an 8.5 to a 10-point favorite. Now, once the line reached the key number of 10, 3, 7, and 10 are your key numbers, remember. We saw some buyback coming in, okay, on Utah State. The Aggies have value in this game as the top contrarian play of the night. A buy low dog off of a blowout loss of 20 points or more, and an unranked inflated home dog against a ranked opponent. We could also be looking at a higher scoring game here, too. The total has been steamed up from 57.5 all the way up to 63.5. Now, both teams averaging roughly 30 points per game on offense. Once again, the difference comes on the defensive side, where BYU was allowing only 19 points per game, and Utah State is giving up 30 points per game. So the pros in this game, they like Utah State as the underdog, and they kind of feel this could very well be the top contrarian play of the night. So once again, reviewing the 3 games for tonight. Houston against Tulsa, the general public, big on Tulsa. The pros are on Houston. Iowa at Maryland, probably the biggest bet game of the night. Most of the money coming in on Iowa. The pros are on Maryland. And finally, your late game at 9 o'clock, BYU and Utah State. The pros are on Utah State in this game. So you have an unranked team playing against a ranked team. We'll see how that turns out. So that's the story as far as those 3 games are concerned. Now let's kind of take a look and see what Chris Andrews has to say about these 3 games. And if you're listening to the show for the first time, just want to let you know that Chris Andrews is the sportsbook director. He's the director at South Point in Las Vegas. And once again, he's been doing this for over 30 years. So you kind of get an idea, probably knows what he's talking about. But the reason we bring him into play here is because he sets up and lets us know how these lines develop, getting into the minds of the sports book. See, if you can do that and you can make that move just as they're ready to make their move, that makes a big difference whether you're going to be making money or losing money. There's no doubt about it. So in that first game, Houston against Tulsa, it's going to be on ESPN, 7:30 tonight, Eastern Time. He says that I opened Tulsa at 3.5 points, a 3.5-point favorite. The pros laid the 3.5 and then also laid 4 points. So he's at 4.5 right now. I see some 5s out there. It might take 5 to stop Tulsa bettors in their tracks. He kind of thinks that's what it might do. No Houston money yet at South Point at that point in time when he was putting this thing together. He said, I should note, though, it's telling that the first money went away from the key number of 3. He opened just above that. So instead of taking the hook, the pros jumped on Tulsa. So really speaks to the lack of respect for Houston, because he says, I'll remember that in future weeks. So that's how it turned out where the pros wound up going on to Tulsa. Okay? So that's the story there. Now, as far as Iowa and Maryland are concerned, great betting game here. Already, it's a lot of activity. The TV hype is going to continue on until the kickoff time. It's the battle of the two teams who are undefeated. He opened Iowa as a 3.5 point favorite. First bet was on the Hawkeyes, so he went to 4. The Sharps said, laid that, driving the line up to 4.5. But now the pro money is taking back at plus 4.5 and at plus 4. Looks like different groups of pros rather than the public money, which will come in hard on this particular game. A really good two-way action game for the sports books. Iowa's strong, but not a blowout team unless it catches the turnover breaks. Maryland beat the West Virginians last week. That took Oklahoma in the game the week also. So great to see such a big betting attraction on a Friday night game. Finally, at BYU at Utah State, CBS Sports, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. This is a big attraction for local bettors in Nevada. He opened BYU as a 7.5 point favorite. Sharps laid that money. They quickly laid 8 when he went up to 8. So he went up to 8.5 and went straight to 9. Okay. The pros took the dog at 9, taking plus 9. Now he's somewhere around 8.5 still, okay? And the respected play on both sides, but at different numbers. It took the full 9 to bring in the pro dog money. Another game that moved away from a key number at the open as well, keeping in mind 3, 7, and 10 are your key numbers. BYU at 7.5 went rather higher than falling back to 7. So it went from 7.5 up to 8.5, up to 9 at some houses. Check with your local bookmaker as to what the story is there. Always pay attention to what happens in the early round key numbers. You'll learn a lot about what the pros are thinking. They speak with their money. So if they're doing that, you should really be listening to them as well. Now, that's the story on those 3 games, kind of give you an idea as to how the numbers develop, how they start out, how the pros manipulate that number. Okay, shows you the respect that they have with their money, not only with their money, but with their ideas and their thoughts. So the whole idea is right there for you. Kind of listen to it, kind of think about it. And if you get into the mind of those sports books, you'll be doing much better than you are right now. So let's take that final break. And we got one break left. Get it out of the way. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the NFL games, some of the games on tap for this coming weekend is Sunday. We're going to talk about a couple of games and some thoughts and ideas as to some betting situations. So we're going to let you know about them. And again, as always, let you make the final decision. So let's get that final break out of the way. We'll be back in 1 minute. And here we go again into the final segment of the show. And we're going to talk about the NFL. Thank you for listening. We're coming to you live on the I 95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We're also podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms, such as Google, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, you name it, we're there. Anyway, talking about some NFL games coming up this Sunday. The other day, we talked about the Falcons in Washington. Falcons were a 1.5 point dog in this game. We're expecting the line to change, okay? It really hasn't happened yet, although most of the books have even gone down to 1, though some are still holding the line at 1.5, making Washington a 1.5 point favorite. Falcons a 1.5 point dog. Westgate is up to 2 as a favorite for Washington. So I'd bet as soon as possible, especially if you're going to be teasing the Falcons up to 7.5. Okay. So the Falcons are the dog, 1.5, going to 2 in some places. Check with your local area on those. We also talked about the Lions and the Bears. The Lions are a 3 point dog. Now, we kind of gave you the thought and idea that on Wednesday and Thursday to take the Lions as soon as possible. We're starting to see more and more of the books going up to 3 at 3 with a minus 120 on the money line. So they've juiced up the money line up to minus 120 at a 3 point dog. So it looks like it's going to go to 2.5. That's the next step. Going from 120, it may go back to 2.5 so that the money line drops back down to 110. Okay. That's the way those things work. We talked about that in the past. We'll spend more time talking about it in the future. That's what affects the various moves. Then the Vikings against the Browns. The Vikings are a 2 point dog. This line is looking pretty solid at 2, which is fine as far as we're concerned, especially because we're looking for Kirk Cousins to take the Vikings as an upset, an outright upset as well, and a short home underdog in this game, and back to 2-2 or at 500 for the team. However, you could wait to see if it goes to 2.5. Good possibility, especially if you're looking to include the Vikings with your 6 point teasers. That's important. The Panthers and the Cowboys. Panthers are a 5 point dog. The line is down to 4.5 in some places. Some of them are even down to 4, starting to come in. So grab the best number you can if you kind of like the Panthers. So the Panthers are dropping from 5 to 4.5 to 4 at some places. So check with your local place as to where they are. And of course, the Ravens, they're a 1.5 point dog to the Broncos. Now, we are kind of adding this game to our list because all the 1.5s were gone, and some books even were moving this game to a pick 'em. So we could definitely see a change in favorites here. It could swing over to the Ravens. Okay, you may have a flip here. So if you like the Ravens and you want to get some points, now is the time to do it. If you like the Broncos, you might want to sit back and see what happens because this line may go the other way. So that's the story. Anyway, one more. The Cardinals and the Rams. Cardinals are a 5 point dog. The fives are also gone as far as most of the other games are concerned. So grab the Cardinals as soon as possible so you can get as many points as possible with the Cardinals just in case. The line is down to 4 at some books as well. So that's another reason why you need to be reading the Point Spread Weekly and places like that to get more information. So that's the story there. I want to thank you very much for listening. And of course, just to give you an idea, we'll be back again tomorrow morning. Saturdays and Sundays, we're here at 11 a.m. And just to recap the 3 college games on tap for tonight, you got Houston against Tulsa, the pros are on Houston. Iowa against Maryland, the pros are on Maryland. And BYU at Utah State, the pros are on Utah State. So, anyway, thank you very much for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on the I 95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your podcast platforms as well. So, until tomorrow at 11 a.m., I'm Chris Pardo. Have a great Friday. If you're going to be out tonight, have a great time with your friends and family. We'll be back again tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. But in addition to having a great Friday, have a profitable Friday as well. We want you to do that. We want to see you getting ahead. So thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Goodbye, everybody.